To try.
Maasros? I can't stand that. Maasros. Okay. Bet. Where are we? Bet. Okay. If one was
Het
working with
get.
Tet,
Yeah.
right. If
Get.
what did we say? Bet Tet, right?
No, get. If he was working
The cat,
in the
Tet.
Vasim,
Yes. He was one was working.
there is no tet. Yeah.
If one was working with inferior figs, he may not eat superior figs with superior figs. He may not eat inferior figs. But he may refrain choose the sight of the choice fruit, and then eat. If one exchanges with his fellow, one to eat and the other to eat, one to lay out and the other one to lay out, he is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says he who exchanges to eat is liable, to lay out he is exempt. If one courtyard to lay them out, his children and his household may eat and he and are exempt. The laborers who work with him, if they are not entitled to maintenance from him, they may not exempt. But if they are entitled to maintenance from him, they may not eat. If one takes his laborers out into the field, if they are not they may eat and are exempt, but if they are entitled to maintenance from him, they may eat from a fig tree by one, but not from the basket or hamper or dry. Okay, good.
Okay. Fine. Mishnah Gimel is hasocher is hapoel bezeisim. So somebody hires a worker in order to tend his olive trees. Now this is different from our previous case where he's not harvesting. He's just going around pruning, digging around, watering, whatever it is, in order to deal with the tree. This little guy's being very cute over here. He's making these faces at me. Um,
Okay.
yeah, he likes Mishnah. So the worker is coming and tending to the trees. Amar lo. So the worker says, "I'll work for you. I want your permission to eat the olives off the tree." Okay, ochel echad echad patur. Then okay, it's a transaction, but one by one and eat them. Okay. The imtzeref chayav, but if you took two at a time, then now you have to take to take Jumas and Maasros.
That's right.
Okay. And if he's been hired to weed among the onions, Amar lo almanas le'echol yarak. I want to be able to. I like the onion leaves. They've got, and he wants to be able to nosh on those while he's working. Okay. He's allowed to cut off one leaf by one leaf, and he's allowed to eat them. And if you join them together, then he's chayav. Okay, so what's the chiddush of this Mishnah? Chiddush of this Mishnah actually is that it's because we seem to have covered this already in previous Mishnayos. But the Rosh asks the question, what are we doing with this Mishnah over here? So the Bala Mishnah Rishona says that the difference over here is this is not normal. People don't eat raw olives.
Mm-hmm.
People don't typically eat the leaves of onions either. So this is it's a non-standard kind of request, and we learn about this, that this is also included as a chachila, and nonetheless, so he's still patur from Maaser one because it's hold on a second, you might have so you might have thought that they're patur from Maaser is not that there's just like a gift that the guy is giving him, and therefore it's not considered transactional. So the Mishnah is coming to teach us that even so, there's still of Trumas and Masters taking hold of the things that are not normally eaten. Are you full of smiles? Well, look, I'm much happier that you're smiling today than that you. Okay, you just look at Eliezer, okay, and make happy faces at him. Okay. But matzah ketzitzos b'derech. Okay, if he finds dried figs on the I feel a bit sad, even if it's right next to the field where they're drying out figs. V'chein teina, or a fig tree that's leaning over the Rishus Harabim. Okay, matzah tachtea te'inim, and you find figs underneath it. Mutaros mishum gezel ubetur. They are totally permitted. You can pick them up and eat them. You don't have to worry that it belongs to somebody else. Ubeturos min Maasros, and furthermore, pater from Maser. Contrast that to zeisimu v'charuvim chayavim, but with olives and carobs, you are chayav. Okay. Now, what's the difference? What's the difference between the two, between the species? We explain in the Gemara in Elumatzias that the difference between figs and olives and carobs is that when figs fall on the ground, they go splat.
Okay.
Is that when a fig falls on the ground, people look at it and say, "I don't want that." So the owner of the fig tree, or whatever, in his das, once a fig falls of the tree, there's no 5-second rule here. It's they're gone, and in his mind they're hefker. Arabs not so much. They don't degrade when they fall on the ground, and therefore he's still makbid. He could still be makbid on it, and therefore you can't just take them without the owner's permission. Okay.
The thing that was, it says that this doesn't constitute theft, because we know that there's a halacha that somebody an umbrella, that you need permission to borrow those things.
Mm-hmm.
So here they're not saying that it's found on the ground. You're not.
It fell on the ground. It's
right.
And for the same reason, it's also pater mina trumas and mina Maasros. Right? There's no
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So Mishna carries on. Matzah grogeros. If he finds dried figs, im darsu rov bnei adam, he finds them and they've already been pressed. Now the question that he has is this because cake that had already been pressed, in which case it's already chayiv in trumas and Maasros, or is it because people stood on it? Now, the guy asking the shaila,
right,
where you want to know, like, do I have to take trumas and Maasros on this squished fig that I want, because that already you just don't want to be in the position of having to ask the shaila. But if you have to ask the shaila, then the question is, if most people have, if it's that time of the season, then it's chayav. Then it's presumed to have come from a ready pressed fig cake, in which case it must have trumas and Maasros taken from it. Season, then he doesn't have to take it. Can be presumed to be hefker.
Is there any difference between the pressed fig and the one that went splat? I would imagine they're pretty much the same.
Well, I think the difference is that if it looks like it's been pressed, pressed is done in a musudar way. It doesn't.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay. Matzah pilchei devela. Now, if you find slices of a fig cake, it's a slice of a fig cake.
Right.
Chayav. Share do a share in midavar gamor, because this is for sure something that has the malach has finished on it. The charuvin. What about carobs? Achilo kinasan lerosh hagag. Until he's taken them to the top of the roof. So you put, apparently what you do is you take them on the top of the roof in order to dry. Okay, and after they're dried, then you make a big pile of them on top of and that's the gorian. That's called the gorian for Maasros, as far as carobs are concerned. So before this stage, when they chayiv in Maasros, morid mehem labahema. If he sees that his animals are hungry and they want to eat carobs, so he can take down a pile and feed them to his animals. Maasros from them yet, because it's not yet finished the melacha. Or pater, he's allowed to feed this table to his animals, because whatever he has left over, if he finds that he's got more in his hands than his animals need it, then he'll take it back up to the roof and put it back there. So it's still in that pre stage.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Right,
Mishna hey. So what is considered a chatzer? that is chayav in Maasros. So there's a certain point when you produce into your house, it becomes chayav in Maasros. But what about the chatzer in front of your house? So it depends on what kind of chatzer it is, and lots of different opinions in. Ishmael Omer chatzer hatzoris. It's a Tyrian, I think from similar to China. What's a chatzer? It's like the ones that are in Sur, Kelim Nishmarim Besocha, where
we've done 3, you know. We've
No, we haven't. No, the third one. Yeah.
We start with the Gimel base.
Gimel. We started.
Again, you're right. All right.
Okay. Right. So the Tyrian one is where the Kalim are protected and where they're stored. So basically, in Tyre, they would take they would have a shomer who'd sit outside.
Right. They're under guard. Right.
Right. They're under guard. Okay. And that a chatzer that requires Maasros. Okay. Rabbi Akiva Omer kol she'echad posech ve'echad noel keturah. It says anytime that you have one person opens and another person closes. Now, what is patur? Not makpid on closing the gate. So if the two there are two diarim in the chatzer, so it's a shared courtyard, and so they're not makpid on closing the gate. Anyone comes in and goes out. So it says in that case it's patur. And now read into that the converse case where they are makpid on keeping. That'll be a chatzer for Maasros.
That's what Maasros because they're already stored in there, or because they're on the guard.
Because it's considered a buy. So once you brought it into a private property, and that's now cover for Maasros, and you can't snack on the.
Right. So it has nothing to do with the guard.
No. So that's a separate opinion. Rabbi Ishmael was talking about the guard. Rabbi Akiva is talking about the opening and closing.
Okay.
Chemia says, "Kol she'ein adam bosh milechol besocha chayeves." If a person would sit inside there and eat a meal, but if it's like so open to the public, so you hear from him that it's so open to the public that he would be embarrassed to sit eating there, then you pater. Interesting, by the way, culturally, we just saw this recently as well with the shops. I don't know, where we had a diuk on. A shop is kover for master because a person is embarrassed to sit and eat in the entrance of the shop. Right. So culturally, that people didn't like to eat in public.
But here we do it all the time. Our cafes.
Yes, I mean people are walking through the shuk and eating an ice cream. Actually, there's a saying in the Gemara that ha'ochel b'shuk doma lekelev. Somebody who eats in.
I was going to say that to you right then. Not the pasuk whole way in Hebrew. I was going to say in English, but the whole thing. That I remember my daughter said that when she was in seminary in Michalach, she said that I guess I learned that pasuk, and they said, if you're walking through the street eating an ice cream, that's like a dog. People don't do that.
Right. So I heard it like a eating a snack and having a hot dog or something, having a sandwich. Because bread is a soda that you should be sitting down like a mensch and eating, not eating a hamburger. Yeah. Right. So Rabbi Yossi So if you have a chatzer where somebody would walk in and nobody asks him what he's doing there, that's considered patur. Mashma, the converse case is if somebody would walk into your chatzer and you say, "Good morning, can I help you?" That's a private. That shows it's a private domain enough to be kover Maasros.
Okay.
Okay. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, "Shtei chatzeros zo lifnei mizo." So if you have this sort of setup where you've got two chatzeros, one leading into the other, the outer one is patur and the inner one is chayav.
Right.
Okay. The Talmud Bavli paskins that the halacha is like all of these lahachmir. We're choshesh for all of these opinions, and any that fits the criteria of any one of these tanaim is chayav. Okay. Right, let's go.
Truma.
Trumos, Yud Aleph Hey.
Um, Kernels of truma. So long as he keeps them, they are forbidden. But if he threw them away, they are permitted. So too, bones of holy food, as long as he keeps. But if he threw them away, they're permitted. Coarse bran is permitted. Fine bran of new is forbidden, but of old is permitted. And he may treat truma chulin. If one sifts 1 or 2 cobs of fine flour from a saw, he may not throw away the rest, but must put it back in a hidden place. If one cleared out truma, wheat from a storeroom, he's not enjoined to sit down and collect the sweeps in his usual manner and puts chulin in it. So too, if a jar of oil was upset, he is not enjoined to sit down and scoop it up, but deals with it chulin. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Next, Trumos, Aleph.
okay.
No, Aleph Vav. Sorry, Aleph Vav.
Above. If 5 may not separate truma, but if they did separate, the truma is truma. Mute or drunk or naked or blind or a balkari may not separate truma, but if they separated truma, the truma is truma. One may not measure by weight or by number, but he may separate from what has been measured, weighed, or counted. One may not separate truma in a measuring basket, or separate in them half or a third of their volume. One may not separate truma in a saw half full, for half of it is a measure. Separate truma from oil for olives, for oil for olives for which are due to be crushed, from wine trodden. But if he did separate, his truma is truma, but he must separate again. The first of it by itself renders meduma, and one is liable for it in the added fifth.
All right. Paya Dalet
By
Base.
the way, I don't remember you making an announcement on Wednesday here next week.
You're right. I didn't announce. I was actually toying with the idea of whether or not I should give the shear from Cyprus. Um,
Life about that.
yeah,
That's your last night
yeah.
there,
Well,
right? That's your
mm,
last night there.
it
So,
is. It is our last night there. That's right.
all right, Paya, right? Paya. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Dalid Bay. In the kinds in the palm trees, it is not so. Even if 99 say to natch and one to distribute, this one they heed, for he spoke according to the law. If a person cast it onto the rest, he has nothing of it. If he fell upon it or spread his cloak over it, they remove it from him. The same applies to cleanings and forgot. They do not reap with sickles and do not uproot it with spades, lest they strike one another.
Hmm.
Okay, we are in Oleos. Oleos, the um, Ted
Design.
design.
Hey. Yeah.
If someone who is searching and reached a river, an irrigation canal stops his search,
What he's searching for is bodies.
but in a field in which people were killed, if all the bones are collected, the field is then considered tahor. If someone is removing a grave from his field, he gathers up every bone, and the whole field is considered tahor. Regarding a pit into which a stillborn people were thrown, the bones are gathered, and the whole pit is rendered tahor. The Reb Shimon says that the pit was initially intended to be a grave. The surrounding earth must be removed, and that's it. I would think, for some reason, I would just think that it would be Tomei rather than Tahor. But
Well, if you manage to clear it out, that's the whole idea. Is that's why you want to move the graves, is so that you can have a tower field.
one who plows a grave thereby creates a base hopras. This plowing make a base paras, a furrow's length, which is 100 cubits, an area of 4 saw. Rabbi Yoshi says an area of 5. Downward slope, but on an upward slope, the following procedure determines the size of the base paras. A quarter cob of vetch seeds are placed on the knee-shaped part of the plant. To the place where 3 vetches will sprout alongside one another is deemed a beit pras. The point is the base of pras. one base of pras can make another base of pras. Yeshua says sometimes it does and sometimes it does not. How so? If one plows half a furrow and then plows or to the sides, this makes another base of pras. However, if he plows a furrow's length and then plows from that point on, the base of pras does not make another base of pras. If a person,
It can.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Wait a second. Mm, yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Okay.
So let me just
What is our
be
hey?
sure. Okay. Nesek wine is prohibited, and it prohibits that which it mixes by the smallest quantity. Wine in wine or water in water prohibits the mixture by the smallest quantity. Or water in wine prohibits only if it imparts flavor. This is the rule. A prohibited substance which mixes into a permitted substance of the same kind prohibits by the small, but if it mixes into a substance of a different kind, it prohibits only if it imparts flavor.
Now this I believe is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, which we don't hold like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's general rule with Mishnah, by the way, is that we don't necessarily paskin halacha like Mishnah. Is actually the last word on it, because
On the whole.
sometimes there'll be minority opinions that weren't quoted in the Mishnah, and the Amoraim paskin differently. That min b'min, or even if it's like in like, we also say v'nos in tam, and the rule of thumb we use for that 60 unless it's a particularly sharp taste.
The following are prohibited, and they prohibit that which with they mix by any quality. Nestic wine idols, hard pear skins, an ox which is to be stoned, an egla arufa, the birds of a nazir, the firstborn of a donkey, meat mixed with milk, the he goat that he dispatched as to Azazel, and unconsecrated animals that were slaughtered in the temple court. And they prohibit that which they mix by any quantity.
Hold on a second. Basa b'chalav. How does basa b'chalav get to be? Sorry, okay, I understand other things that are chashuv in their own right. Where there's a, but now why is basa b'chalav? Um,
Um,
let me see. What is it?
you
Basa
shall
b'chalav?
not cook a
Chatichat basar. Chatichat basar. Talking about chaticha or oil is covered bo. So basically if it's chashuv, if it's sick. So a good steak doesn't apply bittul. Only if it's something small that is insignificant. You
this
okay?
is that you should not cook a kid in the milk of a mother is stated 3 times in the Torah.
Mhm.
Once to prohibit cooking with meat and prohibit eating such a mixture, and one to forbid any benefit. If a significant piece of meat, that is one which is
You heard the word significant.
right,
Yeah.
right, that is a portion fit to honor a guest with, was cooked with milk, and it became lost among even 1,000 similar pieces of permitted milk, they are all prohibited for benefit. And the stringent prohibition of milk mixed with meat, a piece of meat or other food which is significant enough to honor a guest with, and which is prohibited in practice because it has absorbed in substance, does not have the stringency of the piece itself, which is not
Yeah.
inherently forbidden, right, and so forth.
Right. So that's when the meat itself is inherently asur. We did just share.
Right.
But if it just absorbed isur and it's not intrinsically asur, then we don't apply that rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Carry on. Mishnah
Uh,
Yud. Mishnah Yud.
right. The Nesic wine fell into a cistern of ordinary wine, all of which it is prohibited for benefit. Reb Shimon Gamil says it should be style except for the value of the Nesic wine that is in it. Okay.
Okay. And finally, Yavamos.
Okay.
Dalad Yud Beis.
If one marries his divorced wife, or he marries his kalutza, or the relative of his kalutza, he must send her away. That union is a mamzer. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. The Kakaman, however, say
Machzir Grusha. So hold on. Machzir Grusha. So oh, after she married somebody else. The point over here is that if a man divorced his wife and then she remarried and then the second husband died, he's not allowed to remarry her. the love. It's not an erva, it's a stam love. Similarly, hanose chalutzaso, if he marries his late chalitza to, and then he comes and does a kiddushin on her, that also is that a stam love? It's, I think that may be a stam love. Hanose krovas chalutzaso, or marrying a relative of the woman that he did chalitza to.
It says that
In all these cases, he has to divorce them. Now, Rabbi Akiva says that the vlad is a mamzer. He says that this is that any asur relationship creates a mamzer if they have children.
The first thing when you said it's forbidden by the Torah to marry this person.
It is forbidden by the Torah to marry this person.
Right.
But it's a stam love. It's just like a negative commandment, like eating chazer or muzzling an ox or whatever. Okay, it's not an erva for which a person would get a death penalty or kares. Okay, so it's just a stam, a basic level negative commandment.
Right. Amen, however, say the child is not a mamzer, but they admit that if he marries the relative of his divorced wife, that the child is a mamzer.
So, for example, if you marry a sister, that's mamish an erva, and since there's a chiyuv kares there, so Chachamim make the rule that any relationship that from other than nida, the child is a mamzer.
Okay. Out of any blood relation with whom cohabitation is prohibited by a negative commandment. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Shimon had a child of anyone for whom the punishment is kares, as you said, at the hands of heaven, and the halakha follows his view. Rabbi Yeshua says the child of anyone for whom the punishment is death. Rabbi Shimon ben Azai said, I have found a genealogical scroll in Yerushalayim in which was written, so and so is a mamzer from a married woman, supporting Rabbi Yeshua's words. One whose wife died is permitted to marry her sister. If he divorced her and she died, he is permitted to marry her sister. If she married someone else and she married her sister. If his Yavama died, he is permitted to marry her sister. And if he performed chalitza with her and she died, her sister.
So all of that could have been summarized that if a woman dies, you're allowed to marry her sister. Finished.
Rabbi Gamliel says there is no validity to a bill of divorce after a bill of divorce, nor to a mamzer after mamzer.
Not mamzer, ma'amar. Is that's the kiddushin derabanan that you do to Yavama before marrying her?
I'm sorry, it's my eyes. To a mama after mama, nor to cohabitation after cohabitation, chalitza after chalitza. The Chachamim, however, say there is a validity to a bill of divorce after a bill of divorce, and to mama after mamar, and after cohabitation or after, there is nothing.
Right, and we're going to see the cases of this. So this is that's just a principle that we start off with, but we're going to see the application of that in the coming Mishna.
Okay.
All right.
All right. While you're gone, I will believe that.
I'll see you on Yetz Hashem on Sunday morning still.
Right, and hopefully I will when you come. So
okay.
If we have to go to a new mission, it might not be the same one you were thinking of, but I will try.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.